Three names need to show up big if the New Orleans Saints want to win against the Los Angeles Rams. One of them is, of course, Taysom Hill. How the New Orleans Saints get him involved may be the deciding factor in Sunday's matchup. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much as always for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credential member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today Saints Wire, Tuesdays a Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security with Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe. That means 24/7 monitoring agents that are able to capture evidence to accurately verify a threat and make sure that you get a faster police response in turn. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl to learn more. On today's episode, we're going to go through beignets and parlays to get you ready for this weekend and all the betting odds around the New Orleans Saints and why there are some good odds on Offensive Rookie of the Year, sort of the race right now for New Orleans Saints wide receiver Chris Olave. We'll take a look over on the defensive side of the ball in a moment to say what it is that the New Orleans Saints need to get done there and the player that you're going to want to see the biggest performance from this weekend. But first, two names for the New Orleans Saints over on the offensive side that have to get things done. And the first of which, as we mentioned earlier, is Taysom Hill. You can call him a quarterback. You can call him a tight end. You can call him a Swiss Army knife. I'll call him the multifaceted weapon. Taysom Hill has got to be involved in this game if the New Orleans Saints want to get a win. The Saints are looking at a defense right now with the Los Angeles Rams that hasn't necessarily been themselves in terms of what we've come to expect from them over the course of the recent past, let's just say. And a lot of that strength on that defense is in the interior. You're, of course, talking about a guy in Aaron Donald, who is such a big difference maker there. So you double team him, triple team him, do everything you have to do on the interior, but you've got to be able to win the edge in this matchup. And guys like Taysom Hill, as well as Alvin Kamara, can get that done. The Saints just have to be able to have, first of all, enough plays in this game in order to be able to keep that run game going. The Saints haven't run more than 50 plays in each of the last two games. Those are also the two games in which they allowed over 80 snaps, take away some for a penalty and quote unquote no plays and things like that. But still, over 80 snaps to the opposing offense and losing time of possession by more than a quarter of the game. Saints cannot allow that to happen against this Los Angeles Rams team. So don't be surprised this week to see Taysom Hill heavily involved. I said it in the crossover with Travis Rogers, which was an excellent conversation. We had a lot of laughs in that one as well, talking about these two teams. Make sure you go and check that out in yesterday's episode of Locked On Saints, or go support his show by listening to Locked On Rams. But Travis and I were sort of discussing Andy Dalton might be the starter moving forward and in this game, but Taysom Hill has got to be the star. He's been the difference maker along with Alvin Kamara when this team has performed well so far this season. So you're looking for another one of those opportunities. How do you utilize that? There's a couple different ways. You're trying to win the edge, right? So if you're looking at opportunities on the outside, easy one, of course, is running the outside zone run scheme that Alvin Kamara has always been so good at that we haven't seen a ton over the course of the past few years because he's been asked to do so much up the middle. Now you've got David Johnson, you've got these other guys in Dwayne Washington that maybe can take a little bit of that role, but try to get Alvin Kamara in space and around the edge and take advantage of the weak Los Angeles Rams perimeter. Get on the outside. The other way you can do that is going to be by having Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara on the field at the same time and run some of those outside zone reads. Step back in the shotgun, have Alvin Kamara over on the right. You can meet at the mesh point there. If the key holds, then you can hand off to Alvin Kamara, let him take it around the outside. If the key collapses, then Taysom Hill keeps it and then runs to the outside on the opposite side of the field past the collapsing guard. So there's, or defender, excuse me. So either way there, you're attacking both sides of the perimeter and you're creating conflict defenders in the backfield. If you can force that conflict defender to make the wrong choice in the backfield of all places, that opens up some green grass for you over on the backside. The other way that they can, of course, do this is with the tried and true QB power, right? Saints didn't run a single one against the Baltimore Ravens. They tried a couple against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That has got to be a part of their DNA in this game, right? I'm not talking about it has to be something that they try a couple of times, and if it doesn't work, then abandon it and go somewhere else. No. That has to be bread and butter. That has to be DNA. That has to be the default call almost every single play on offense. Don't give up on this, or don't prescribe your failure in that area of the game. Keep going at it. Keep punching if you want to have a puncher's chance. So those are the ways that they can attack the perimeter. A couple of other things they're going to have to do in this one, like I mentioned, is run more than 50 plays. That's part of the reason why you haven't seen a commitment to the run game over the course of the past couple of weeks, is because the Saints have tried to maximize the little amount of snaps that they're getting, but they're also not efficient in the passing game with Andy Dalton right now. And so they're incomplete, or things are being thrown directly at the line of scrimmage, so on and so forth. And you're getting behind on your downs because of that. You're going from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 10. You're going from 2nd and 10 to 2nd and 8. Or 2nd and 7 or longer. The Saints had 9 of their 12 third downs last week, staring at a 7 or longer mark to go. You can't be in that situation. You have to start winning on first downs. The Rams corners have played man coverage around 10% so far this season. So it's a heavy zone scheme. So you know what that means. You got to get Chris Olave involved. That's name number 2 today. You thought it was Alvin Kamara, but I tricked you. It's Chris Olave, the rookie wide receiver, who has really stepped into a larger role than anticipated as a rookie, and has done so with the success and sort of efficiency and effectiveness of a veteran. So you've loved what you've seen from him so far. Him going up against a heavy zone scheme, it's perfectly built for him. It's just like what he saw against the Raiders. So get him involved in the passing game, let him find his pockets in the zone and all that, and then be able to take advantage of red zone opportunities with Taysom Hill as well as with Alvin Kamara, because the majority of the man coverage, the little bit of man coverage that the Rams have played on the defensive side, have come in the red zone. So operate between the 20s, utilizing your stars, but then fall back on your guys that can pick up and be those short distance winners, those short distance champions like Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara when you get to the red zone. So the formula in this one, y'all, is simple. Run the ball well and commit to it. It has to be a part of the DNA. Succeed on those early downs. I don't care if that is a Matt Canada style, 3 yards here, 4 yards there, 3 yards there, whatever it takes to inch and sort of just take what the defense is giving you. Avoid rushing into shots. You can take them over the middle when they're there. The Los Angeles Rams have been not targeted very much over the middle, but they've been susceptible when they have been targeted over the middle in the deep area of the field. 3 of 6 on the season so far. Opposing quarterbacks targeting that area of the field for a 28, 39, and 47-yard completions. Marcus Mariota also threw an interception there as well. But you don't have to rush into those shots. Take everything that the defense is giving you low to high. But then if you want to attack, the middle of the field is the place to attack. Andy Dalton has tried 10 attempts, 10 passes down the right sideline deep. Each and every one of them has been incomplete or intercepted. Stay away from that area of the field. Attack the middle, and this Rams defense is going to give that to you every now and then. So take advantage when you can get it, but don't rush into it. Dice up the zone in order to move the ball, and most importantly, stay on the field. You cannot lose time of possession by more than 15 minutes for a third week in a row. Otherwise, you're looking at another third game in the loss column. It's that simple. All right, family, coming up next, the New Orleans Saints need to do to the Los Angeles Rams what the Pittsburgh Steelers did to the Saints last week if they want to win this game. That means forcing the Rams to be one-dimensional, and there's a good way that the Saints are going to be able to do that. We're going to break that down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Tommy John's, the best loungewear, underwear, pajamas that you're ever going to find. I've got some Tommy John stuff I absolutely love. Lounge shirt, lounge pants, all of it. I absolutely love the set, and it is so comfortable. And especially if you're somebody like me that doesn't like doing the whole Black Friday thing, because you want to talk about uncomfortable. For me, that's what the Black Friday thing is. Everybody crammed in like sardine cans, just ready to get sardine cans ready to get trampled, all that. Don't want anything to do with it. But for right now, they already, Tommy John's, have their Black Friday sale going on at this moment. So you can give the gift of comfort to those that you love best on your list. And of course, yourself. Don't forget to treat yourself as well. So Black Friday already underway over at Tommy John. So check them out. You can shop their Black Friday sale right now and get 30% off site-wide. That's everything at TommyJohn.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. That's 30% off of everything right now at TommyJohn.com/lockedon, TommyJohn.com/lockedon. See site for details. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. The New Orleans Saints are going to have to do to the Rams what the Steelers did to them last week if they want to win this game. Appreciate you as always for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget for your second listen today to also go check out Locked On Sports today. The Bills' big game has been moved to Detroit because of the snow. We have weather reports and everything for you because of our partnership and our friends over at Tegna. So we got some really cool stuff going on in that show. So go check it out on this app, wherever you're listening, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So the Saints need to do to the Rams what the Steelers did to the Saints last week. What does that mean? And there's one player on the defensive side that you are waiting, and our third key player of this week, that you're wanting to see a huge game from. Let's start off with what it is that the Saints need to do to the Rams. It is make them one-dimensional. The Rams right now have one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL. It was so bad that Cam Akers wanted out. They couldn't even trade him, right? So the Rams rushing offense has been putrid so far this season. Don't give them a rushing offense all of a sudden. Make them one-dimensional. That's what happened to the Saints last week. The Saints against the Steelers rushed only 15 times. What did that mean? It meant that Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt and all of these guys were able to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. That's what the Saints need to do to the Rams. And one of the other pieces that's going to help you there is that Cooper Kupp is not going to play in this game. At least doesn't look like he's going to play in this game. Obviously, like, he's on injured reserve, so there's a whole thing here. But anyway, without Cooper Kupp, you're going to have to allow the Rams to just simply do what it is that Travis Rogers talked about, host of Locked On Rams, in yesterday's crossover episode, which is go to Allen Robinson all you want, because that connection has not worked all season. Now, don't give it life, right? Got to be able to get out of your own way. There's your note over on the side there. So the Saints can't get in their own way in all of this, but if they can force the Rams to be one-dimensional, if they can force the Rams to go to the air, not commit penalties, but still get after the quarterback, all of those things, there is your formula. There's your formula for a win this week. It should be that simple. Now, it's easier said than done, however, because you're going to want to get pressure with your front four, but your front four right now is dealing with some big-time injuries. Are they going to have Marcus Davenport? Are they going to have Cam Jordan? Looks like Cam Jordan might miss his second game in 2 years after not missing games pretty much his entire career. So if that happens, who are your leading edge rushers? Well, then you turn the page to Carl Granderson as well as Payton Turner. And that name, that latter name right there, Payton Turner, that's the guy, key player number 3, that you're wanting to see have a big game. This guy has had so many flashes throughout camp. He had flashes in that Carolina Panthers game last year. He had some flashes early on, just a couple of weeks ago as well. Payton Turner has what it takes, but can he do it consistently? That's always been the question that Dennis Allen has brought up anytime that we've asked about Payton Turner, that, the defensive line has, defensive line coach and Ryan Nielsen, as well as co-defensive coordinator, he's spoken about it as well. The need for consistency is the big piece. So here's a big opportunity potentially standing here and waiting for Payton Turner. So we spoke with Ryan Nielsen yesterday and, just kind of mentioned, okay, if you don't have both of your edge rushers, you're going up against the Los Angeles Rams' 10th starting offensive line combination. They are 4 deep at certain spots. and guys playing out of position all over the place. How do you prepare for this when you have not seen this offensive line on tape in its current sort of formula, and your defensive line might be hindered? And basically the way that Ryan Nielsen said is that obviously you worry more about what it is that you're doing than what they're doing, but you know what their scheme is. You come up with ways to attack it, and then they've made small tweaks to the defensive line. Now, as Ryan Nielsen told me, he couldn't tell me what those tweaks were, of course, but you can pretty much guess just by looking at the players that they may or may not have available. Guys like Marcus Davenport and Cam Jordan are speed to power kind of players. They're mostly power rushers. Carl Granderson and Payton Turner have that element in their game, of course, but they're also very athletic rushers. So could we see a little bit more of a speed rush approach coming from the outside, going up against an immobile quarterback or a non-mobile quarterback in Matt Stafford? That would be a very interesting way for the Saints to introduce a wrinkle that doesn't completely change their scheme, but just changes a little bit, is a little bit of a tweak in terms of the pressure that they bring from the outside. And they don't have to do it down in and down out, but you're curious, or I'm curious at least, to see, are you going to see a little bit more of an athletic edge rush approach with maybe some supplemental pressure packages coming on those long and late downs, like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 7 or longer? That would be a very interesting thing to see, because it also kind of gives you a glimpse into the future at the position for the New Orleans Saints. Right now, the Saints don't have a single defensive tackle on contract going into next season. And then on the outside, how much longer is Cam Jordan going to be around? You can expect to have maybe a couple more years from him. Marcus Davenport may not even be back in New Orleans next year, depending upon what happens as his contract expires. His 5th-year option is this season. So Payton Turner and Carl Granderson are really your two guys right now that are on the roster that you look at and say, okay, that's the future of the position based on what's on the roster. Obviously, they can go to free agency, they can go to the draft, they absolutely should, all of these other things. But it's going to give you a pretty decent look into what the Saints could be, A, with more athletic pass rushers, but also B, an idea of where that position really rests and the outlook of it without their top two guys. So you're looking for a huge game, a big game from Payton Turner. And hey, if you get a good one from Carl Granderson either, you can't be mad about that. Win on first downs, keep them one-dimensional, get rid of the run game, and then force those long 3rd downs and hopefully generate some turnovers. Right now, CJ Gardner-Johnson, in what might be one of the worst moves that the Saints have made so far this season, has 3 times more interceptions than the entire New Orleans Saints defense, and only one player even accounts for the New Orleans Saints defense's interceptions. Those are the pair by Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. So you're looking for some turnovers in this one as well. All right, coming up next, beignets and parlays, everything you need to know from a betting perspective in this game, including why you might want to jump on the odds for Chris Olave at Offensive Rookie of the Year right now, because they are favorable for those of you that may believe that he is the next Offensive Rookie of the Year. Got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. When we talk about beignets and parlays, though, of course, we're going to be talking about BetOnline, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all your sports wagering needs. Our exclusive online gambling partners here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Nobody that we trust more. 3.5 right now is the line for the New Orleans Saints. We'll hear from Dave Mason here in just a moment about why that line has moved around as much and why the New Orleans Saints are favored in this one. Has a lot to do with the health of the Los Angeles Rams, but the Saints aren't the healthiest team either. So you think the Saints might win but not cover? You think that the Saints might lose this game? You think that the Saints will win and cover? Or if you like the over or under of 39 points, BetOnline is the absolute place that you should be heading right now to go ahead and place your bets so that you can get a little bit of extra cash going into this holiday season. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's get it. Who Dat Nation, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with beignets and parlays. Today's episode of, the segment that we do here, beignets and parlays, is brought to you by BetOnline, friends that we just discussed. More odds, lines, and props than ever before. Check them out, BetOnline, where the game starts. So to get us started here, let's hear a little bit more about how the line has moved over the course of the week from odds maker and betting expert Dave Mason of BetOnline.
The Saints open as 2-point favorites in this matchup of disappointing teams. The line started moving immediately in the Saints' favor, moving to 2.5 and then 3 on Monday. The spread topped out at Saints -4 before settling at -3.5. The bettors are split on this one. Not only has the overall action been 50-50, but we have received two-way sharp action as well.
So it's pretty split in terms of the way that the sharps are looking at this game. But as you hear, it's the New Orleans Saints favored 3.5 going into this game. This is actually one of the few times that the Saints have been home favorites. The only other time that they were favored at home this season was actually their win against Seattle. They've been favored on the road a couple of times, but haven't been able to pull off all of those wins. The over-under is also set at 39 points. Travis Rogers and I very much in agreement about taking the under in this one, but we'll see. I was very convinced about taking the over one week. They hit the under. I was very convinced about taking the under one week. They hit the over. So take that for what you will in terms of my track record for over-unders. But I don't see this one being a very high-scoring game, particularly with two injured teams here. Two of the three wins that the Saints have had so far this season have come with them being favored, not necessarily home favorites, but come with them being favored. The only exception was that third win, which was against Las Vegas Raiders, which was at home, but the Saints were actually underdogs in that game. But it was the lowest point spread that they faced as underdogs so far this season at just 1.5. So the Saints are in a favorable position here. Some might consider them the healthier roster of the two. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that both of these teams are kind of in the same place. I sort of expected this game to be a pick'em. I mean, you had questions at the beginning of the week for both quarterbacks, right? Was Matt Stafford going to be able to clear concussion protocol in time to play, or was it going to be a John Wolford game again? Was it going to be Andy Dalton, or was it going to be Jameis Winston? The Saints making the decision to stick with Andy Dalton moving forward and basically saying that, look, we'll let you know if we change our minds, but right now it's Andy Dalton moving forward because they feel like the issues that they have experienced on offense aren't just about Andy Dalton, but they are elsewhere around the roster and on the offensive side. So we'll see. Maybe staying the course at quarterback is what they feel like is going to help them improve those other pieces. But to me, you should be looking for a way to elevate your play at the quarterback position, not elevate the play around in spite of your quarterback position. So we'll see exactly how it all works out for the New Orleans Saints. But one of those pieces around Andy Dalton over on the offensive side that's been outstanding so far this season is rookie wide receiver Chris Olave, who we mentioned earlier is one of those three players that needs to have a big game if the New Orleans Saints want to get a win here against Los Angeles Rams. Olave's been kind of thrust into a larger role than expected coming into his rookie season, dealing with injuries with Michael Thomas, who of course is now on injured reserve and his season is over. You've got, Jarvis Landry, or his season is expected to be over. You got Jarvis Landry, who has been dealing with injuries as well, but has come back over the course of the past couple of games. So can you get him a little bit more involved in a complementary way to where Chris Olave ends up seeing a little bit less attention and you're able to take advantage of what he can do downfield? He's third right now in offensive rookie of the year odds behind the two running backs, Kenneth Walker and Dameon Pierce. Remember, running backs, quarterbacks, always going to get priority over wide receivers when it comes to offensive rookie of the year odds and when it comes to end of season awards as a whole. So with that being the case, you got to get some big games back from Chris Olave. He's been consistently good, but he hasn't had those big, century mark games here over the course of the past few weeks. So that's what you're looking at for Chris Olave coming into this game is, can he cross the century mark? Could he potentially even get his first multi-touchdown game of the season? Right now, Chris Olave's odds, even though he's third, it's a pretty big gap between him and Dameon Pierce, who's second, plus 1,200. These are fantastic odds if you feel like Chris Olave is going to have just sort of this blow up, for the rest of the season. If he has that glow up, then that is easy money for you right there at plus 1,200. So if you feel really confident about Chris Olave for offensive rookie of the year, this is the time to jump on that. If he gets a multi-touchdown game in this game, he'll skyrocket. If he ends up crossing the century mark in this game, would be the third time this season, that will skyrocket. He's first in targets, first in receptions, first in receiving yards amongst rookie wide receivers. He's over 100 yards beyond number 2, who's Garrett Wilson, his former Ohio State teammate. Chris Olave may be on his way to a 1,000-yard receiving season here. So this is really a time to jump in here if you feel really good about him. Just as a bit of a comparison, fellow rookie wideout Treylon Burks last night for the Tennessee Titans went off against the Green Bay Packers for 111 receiving yards, no touchdowns on Thursday Night Football. Didn't find the end zone. So if you're looking at Olave here, you're like, all right, rookie receivers are doing it elsewhere. This is a zone-heavy scheme. You've been really successful here before. He's got over a 60 passer rating in zone, up against zone. He's got 399 receiving yards against zone. That has been sort of where he has picked teams apart, although he's been very successful against against man coverage as well, where he has over 110 passer rating, or over 100 passer rating when targeted against man coverage. But he has done such a good job of picking apart zones. This could be a huge week for Chris Olave, and this could be a big time defining week when it comes to his offensive rookie of the year bid. So make sure you're checking him out and checking all of these odds out over at BetOnline, where the game starts. Appreciate you as always for tuning in and making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Next episode is going to be our live postcast right after the game from the Caesars Superdome. Win or loss would be live right after the game, and I get you a full recap very soon after, going into Monday morning as well. Heading over to practice here in just a little bit for the New Orleans Saints. So if there's any big news coming out of practice, for instance, Trevor Penning was back at practice yesterday, actually participating in some drills during the media availability. If there's any big moves or big, kind of steps forward in terms of his progress, we'll discuss that, because the Saints have some injuries in the offensive line that you would love to see them be able to curb a little bit with Trevor Penning. So we'll see what that all looks like. But otherwise, see you Sunday night right after the game and after media availability, then again Monday morning. Y'all be safe. I appreciate you as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to go and check out Locked On Sports today. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with the local experts, getting the insights that only Locked On can provide. Find it on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. As always, y'all, thank you so much for making me a part of your day, a part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.